Well, you know how it is when you really crave something, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, here it is.
Well, I just had to have pizza now.
Thought you liked that pizza from that show, Tastes Good,
Good Eats.
Yeah.
I do, but AB's crust.
You know, that guy is a complete dork.
Well, yeah, but his crust is really good. It's chewy and puffy, but tonight I want crisp and thin and kind of charred, like the pizza we had in Italy. Remember?
Actually, he's more like a goober, you know, with all the puppets and the science and everything.
Besides, his dough has to rise like all night, and I require instant pizza gratification.
What happened to your patience will be rewarded, okay, honey?
Shut up.
I'm happy to report that the conversation you just overheard never really took place. It was a dramatization, fabrication, a hypothetical unlikelihood. But let's face it, it could happen, right? I mean, true, the original Good Eats pizza is tasty. It's chewy, yeasty, and yes, puffy, like pants in the 80s. And I'm willing to admit that a man cannot thrive on one pizza alone. It is conceivable that one might desire a crisp, thin pizza in the Neapolitan style with, you know, bits of mahogany char. And yeah, you might want it fast. Fine. So that we can be certain that this scene never plays out in reality, we will strive to fold the aforementioned characteristics into the pizza that we call When it comes to yeast-leavened breads like pizza dough, I've always been a fan of the long, cold dough rise because cold decelerates the life cycle of yeast so that they produce flavor compounds and, of course, CO2 at a slower, more even pace, allowing the dough more time to absorb the goodness. That said, there might just be one particular ingredient that we can invite to the party that might grant us slow rise flavors at fast rise rates, not to mention temperatures. Ooh. Let's get our dough on. 16 ounces by weight of all-purpose or AP flour go into the work bowl of your favorite stand mixer. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, hey, he's making a yeast bread. He's going to need some, you know, high protein. He needs to use like bread flour. And if I was going with a really long rise period, or if I was trying to create a big poofy loaf, I would probably concur. But what I want here is pliancy and speed, so I'm going with plain old lower protein all-purpose flour. To that, we will add 1 standard envelope of instant or rapid rise yeast. It's 2.25 teaspoons or 7 grams for the metrically minded. Now, in this case, instant or rapid refers to the speed at which the yeast get to work. Now, let's just review a couple of common forms here. This is cake yeast, not because it's used in cakes, but because it comes in a cake form. And this is like a big live colony, 70% water by weight. And the yeast that are inside are alive and kicking, wide awake and ready to go. Problem is, extremely perishable stuff, which is why back in, I don't know, early 20th century, people switched over to active dry yeast. Now, to make this, you dry up the little bugs in such a way as to basically encapsulate live cells inside tiny little pods composed of dead yeasts. And when dissolved in water, the dead ones wash away, and the living emerge, phoenix-like from suspended animation. I don't much care for active dry yeast because it has to be soaked or proofed in warm water before use, and I'm too lazy to mess with that. And all too often you find that the yeast inside just aren't very robust, and they take a long time to get any dough. It's just pathetic. Instant or rapid rise yeast are processed differently so that there are more live yeast involved in the equation. And since they're packaged with a dash of citric or ascorbic acid, vitamin C, they get a little boost right out of the box. They're wide awake, ready to blow. They don't have to be soaked before they go into battle, which is nice. Now, to the flour and yeast, a tablespoon of salt. And yes, you can dump that right on top of the yeast, no matter what your old culinary school instructor told you. Then the wet works. 10 ounces of warm water, say about 105 degrees. That will provide the requisite moisture and the warmth needed to wake up the yeast. We're also going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil for flavor and lubrication. And then my secret ingredient, 1 tablespoon of malted barley syrup. Barley syrup is made by malting barley. All right, step one, allow the barley to sprout or germinate in water. Germination sets enzymes into motion, which convert the grain's starch reserves into a double glucose sugar called maltose. The grain is then kiln dried and mixed with water, as well as other cooked grain products, which are gobbled up by the enzyme. Then a slurry is extracted, and this is boiled down into a syrup. Although malt syrup could be made in the home environment, buying it in the jar is ever so much more convenient. Now, here's the really important thing about maltose. Unlike sucrose and glucose, yeast can break it down very, very slowly, which means that when we lead our dough into its second rise, the little boogers will still have plenty to eat, and that means they'll still... So install your dough hook and mix on low until the dough just comes together. All right, now after a minute and a half or so, the mixing phase is over, and we are ready to transition to the kneading phase. So boost the speed to medium and set your timer for 15 minutes. Now, what's really going on here? Weaving. If we want a pizza with a thin, crisp crust, then we're going to have to be able to roll or stretch our dough into a thin membrane. To achieve that, we must weave together two wheat proteins, glutenin and gliadin. And that is exactly what kneading does. Now, the resulting mesh we call gluten. And without it, we would have a crumbly crust rather than a nice crisp one. So how do you know when the weaving is done? Well, when you have a scarf, of course. Just kidding. What we're going to apply is called the window pane test. And just grab yourself a little bit of the dough. It's going to be a little on the sticky side. That's good. Kind of roll it between your hands. And then start kind of stretching it out into a mini pizza. Just kind of work it and turn it, work it and turn it. Trying to make a nice thin membrane, almost like what you do with your tongue when you're getting ready to blow a bubble of bubble gum. And when you get it thin enough, hold it up to the light, and you should be able to see the mesh work right through there. That is what we call a well-developed dough. Now, lube up either a large canister or mixing bowl with just a bit of oil. Toss in the dough ball to coat and cover for the first rise. 1 hour in a warm spot. Speaking of, let us take a moment to contemplate our baking venue. Now, most of us have a home oven. Problem with these devices is that they're calibrated to heat only to 550 degrees. I mean, sure, you could potentially file off the door lock and bake during the self-clean cycle when temperatures top 800 degrees, but that particular modification would void your warranty and quite possibly your homeowner's insurance. Besides, 800 is just medium warm for a real pizza oven. Now, when I say real, I mean, of course, an old school, old world wood fire oven like this. Ooh, soapstone. Nice. In here, temperatures can top 1200 degrees, which can convert a dough to cracker-like crunch in not minutes, but moments. Alas, I do not possess one of these yet. Nope. To find the heat I seek, we're going to have to head out of doors. Sure is nice, though. Oh, don't let those bars spook you. If we've constructed our dough correctly, it will flourish in this environment. Okay, now, if you're a purist, you could light 2 pounds of charcoal in a chimney starter and build yourself a nice single-level, medium heat fire in your charcoal grill. However, if I remember correctly, instant gratification was something of an issue here. So this time, we're going gas. We will fire all burners on high and give the box plenty of time to heat up. I'd say 15 minutes minimum. Oh, and make sure that the grates are clean, because anything that's left on them is going to be in your pizza. All right, our hour is up. Time to bust down this dough and divide it into thirds. Ooh, nice rise. That's exactly what we're looking for. So turn that out, and first thing we're going to do is kind of punch it down, get out some of those really big bubbles. So just move it around, form it back into a ball. Now, we need 3 pieces, so I'm going to weigh it to be precise. So we're basically going to be looking for 9.5 ounces here. So in splitting this up, I usually find it's easier to shape it into kind of a cylinder like that. And we'll take a third. Hey, not bad. All right, pound it out flat just to make sure that all the big bubbles have been popped out. Now, Pick it up and start folding it in on itself and pinch the bottom so that you've got a nice smooth outer skin, okay? Now lay that down on the counter. Hold your hands like this and just roll. Now notice I'm not closing my fingers, around it. I'm not squeezing the dough. There, that'll tighten that outer skin and give us a nice smooth ball, which is going to make it a lot easier to roll out later. Repeat with the remaining 2 balls. Set your timer for 45 minutes. Now this step is referred to as bench resting, and it constitutes a second rise, which will happen fast and furious thanks, of course, to the maltose in that barley syrup. All right, so with the dough on final approach, it's time to hit the sauce.
Get yourself a big old ripe tomato and slice it thin, about 1/3 of an inch. You'll get about 6 pieces. Toss that with 2 whole cloves of garlic minced, a tablespoon of olive oil, half a teaspoon of good old-fashioned kosher salt, and for kick, a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flake. And just toss that together with your hands and allow it to marinate. No cooking necessary.
Time to consider our one piece of specialty hardware, all right? The peel, which of course derives from the Latin pala or spade, is indispensable to the pizza producing process. Now, pizzerias that do their cooking in commercial deck ovens often cook their pies on flat pans, which are bandied about on metal peels. True pizza artisans, however, like you, should always reach for wood because its texture allows for the easy transfer from board to oven floor or fire and back again. You can even cut your pizza on it if you wish. Now, this is my personal favorite peel. Emma Peel. Oh, you youngsters are just going to have to look that one up. Time to check on our dough balls. This was no boating accident. Sorry, never mind. It is time to roll things out. But before we do anything, we must lightly flour our pizza peel because it's got to be done at some point, and it's easy to forget. Yeah, now if you're not going to use a peel, just use a flat cookie sheet, whatever will allow you to deliver the pizza to the grill. All right, take dough ball 1 and just work it into a disc. I like to use my knuckles to help break up the bigger bubbles in there. Now, if you don't mind a free-form shape, you can just kind of stretch and rotate this thing until you've got a 12 to 16-inch amoeba. Otherwise, you might want to fetch up a rolling pin. I like this French model, no handles, just a stick, really. Go to work rolling outward and then turning. So you're always rolling in the same direction. Turn, kind of 90 degrees, and roll again. Now, if you want a really thin pizza, this is definitely the way to go. And every now and then, just kind of shake the dough to make sure it's not sticking to the board. More flour may be required, but try not to go crazy with it, or the dough will get tough on you.
I'll measure 16 inches, almost there.
Now, if you're feeling really daring,
there, and lay it right out on the peel, stretching to the edges. Good, nice fit. Now, to the fire. Now, first step is to wipe down these grates. I've got just a little oil on an old towel. There you go. Heat goes down to medium, and we want to make sure we've got our tools, tongs, spatula, brush, oil, mise en place standing by. So about 1 to 2 teaspoons of oil goes down on the dough. Just brush that out right to the edges and flip down onto the grill. Then on one side, line up those tomatoes. That's right, they're finally getting cooked. 2 minutes later, you'll be ready to flip that dough over. But first, a little bit of oil on the A side, so to speak, which will now go down. There. Now, scoop up the tomatoes, and they will be gushy, and place them right on the pizza and just mash them down. This is from the original kind of margarita-style pizza from Naples. 1/2 ounce of Parmesan cheese grated, 1.5 ounces of mozzarella, and 4 to 6 large basil leaves shredded. 2 more minutes, and look at that. You have got a finished pizza. Just scoop that up on your peel. Now notice there's still some puffiness around the edges, but that will set nice and crispy with a few minutes of resting.
I will share with you now my top secret favorite pizza combo. It's going to sound a little odd, but trust me, I'm a professional. First thing you're going to need, a 3.5-ounce ball of fresh mozzarella. That's the round white things packed in water or brine. Very different from melting mozzarella, okay? You're also going to need 3 very thin slices of prosciutto, about 1 ounce total.
Now this stuff can be really tricky to cut, so skip the scissors and the knives and just whip out your pizza cutter. Lay it out on the board and just slice right through it. It's sticky enough so that it will stay adhered to the board. I like thin, short ribbons. So I just cut through one direction and then the other, and then scoop up with my dough blade. All right, as for the cheese, we need to get some moisture out of it, so cut it into 1/4-inch rounds. Place it on some paper towel, a little more paper towel on top, and then weight it with something in the 2-pound range. In 20 minutes, you will have wrung out all of the excess moisture, leaving cheese that looks a lot like this. If you skip this step, you'll have puddles on your pizza. If you like that, well, okay. Now, for the secret ingredient.
Dates. An ingredient never before utilized on this program. These are the dried fruits of the date palm tree. They are sweet, they are figgy, they are sticky, they are perfect on pizza. And although pitted versions are easily found in American megamarts, if you find some with the stones intact, don't be afraid.
Here's what you do. Lay them out, take your pizza roller and just slice right into the side of the date. Open it up and then you can use your thumb to pop out that little pit. That's it. Then just cut them up as you would any other date. Again, I like to use the pizza roller for this. All right, the grill is ready, so we're going to swab it down with the oil just as before. Heat's a little high, so I'm going to knock it down to medium, maybe medium-high. There you go. I want a little bit more char. Lube up the dough just as before, brush it on just as before, face down just as before. 2 minutes later, just as before, we're ready to oil the B-side. Brush that on and carefully flip. There. Now, time to add the goodness, a little more oil, just to give a little more flavor, a little bit of Parmesan cheese, again about 1/2 ounce as a base, and then lay on your fresh mozz, topped with the ribbons of prosciutto, the dates sprinkled on, and I like an herbal finish, just a teaspoon of fresh thyme chopped up. 2 minutes later, and look at that. You've got my favorite pizza on earth. Nice and crisp, a little burned around the edges. I like that. Salty, sweet, nice.
After 3 to 5 minutes, your pizzas will be ready to cut. And I do prefer a pizza wheel for the job. Vastly superior to a knife, but you can't hesitate. It's got to go down and across. And I give it about, we'll say 6 pieces to do the trick. Now, as you can see, the pieces are light, they are crispy, and I guarantee you that little bit of char is going to up the flavor quotient from 10 to 11.5. Now, decisions. I imagine that some of you are sitting there all grumpy-dumpy about now, saying, we live in a 5th-floor walk-up in the middle of the city. We can't grill our pizza. Well, chins up, New York, London, Paris, Munich. If you've got a gas cooktop, a cooling rack like this, and a pair of vice grips like this, then the thinnest pizza on earth is closer than right around the corner. All right, just mix up a dough just as before. Knead your dough just like before. Rest, rise, portion, roll, and bench rest exactly as you would for the other pizzas. Then use your roller to work one of the dough balls into a rectangle, roughly the same shape and size as your cooling rack. Mine is 12 by 17, I think. Take your time because it's going to take a combination of rolling with stretching to get this nice and thin.
Then just crimp it right onto the rack, and don't worry about holes. It's rustic. People pay extra for that. Good.
Around my house, we have a lot of vice grips to choose from, but I like the needle nose versions for these. They really help you to get hold of the rack. Just go for the center of the back there. Now, apply a very, very thin coating of olive oil. Doesn't have to be extra virgin. Some kosher salt and a few grinds of black pepper. Now, crank your biggest gas burner to high and get to grilling. Just keep the bread about 2 inches above the flame. You know, I think about it, this is actually going to be more like a lavash, the Armenian flatbread, than a pizza, but you can treat it the same. Now just keep moving evenly over the gas. I kind of go back and forth and then side to side. And in about 2 minutes, you're going to notice that there are going to be bubbles, blisters coming up. Don't let those frighten you. See where it's starting to blister up in the middle? That means it's going to be extra crispy there once the bread sets. All right, it's been about 4 minutes. I'm going to take a peek. Yeah, it's brown enough on the bottom, so we're going to flip. A little bit more oil. Going to brush that on. A little more salt. I think I'll skip the pepper on this side. And continue the grilling process for about another 2 minutes.
If you want to slice your bread/pizza, do it while it is still warm. I like just kind of geometric shapes. Otherwise, let it cool and just break it into chunks.
Now, instead of sauce, hummus would be appropriate, maybe with a little cumin seed and parsley. Now, the best part. Boom, please. How's that for crispy, crunchy? And the dough is fast. And since it contains that barley syrup, it will keep viable in the refrigerator for up to a week. So you can just grab it out and bake it up anytime you like. If your pizza urges must be serviced even faster than that, well, there's always this guy. See you next time, Uncle D.